Episode 1, The First Whisper. I still remember the first night we slept in that house. The rain fell like 1,000 tiny fists on the roof, and the air smelled of iron and dust, the kind that clings to your tongue. Marcus said it was the smell of history. I said it was rot. We'd moved to escape the city, the noise, the constant hum of other people's lives pressing against ours. But the silence here was different. It wasn't peace. It was listening. Theo had already fallen asleep. He's only 8 and I wanted this move to mean something good for him, space to run, trees to climb. But as I tucked him in, he asked, "Mom, why do the walls talk when I stop?" I laughed it off. Told him it was the pipes settling. Later that night, Marcus and I unpacked boxes in the living room. I remember the sound of our voices bouncing against the old wood. The house was empty, hollow. Everything we said came back to us just a second too late, like someone repeating the words under their breath. Marcus joked, "Guess we've got an echo." But it wasn't an echo. Echoes fade. This one waited. When I whispered his name, "Marcus?" the answer didn't come right away. It came 5 minutes later, when the lights flickered and I was alone in the kitchen. A whisper, faint, from behind the wall. "Marcus." I froze. My heart thudded so hard it felt like it belonged to someone else. I told myself it was my imagination, the wind, the old pipes again. But then it said it once more. Softer. Like it didn't want him, it wanted me. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with my eyes open, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. Every sound was sharper, the ticking of the radiator, the house breathing under the weight of the rain. And then a second whisper. Not Marcus this time. Said my name. Eleanor. I sat up so fast the blanket tangled around my legs. Marcus stirred beside me, mumbled something. I didn't wake him. I just listened. The voice came again from inside the wall by the headboard. This time it was clear. Familiar even. Sounded like me. Eleanor. I pressed my ear to the wall. There was nothing. Just that deep, humming silence that felt like it could swallow me whole. At 2:43 a.m., I took my phone and started recording. If there was something there, I'd hear it. I whispered again, testing it. Who's there? Silence. Then static. Then a faint, breathy voice. You are. I dropped the phone. The next morning, Marcus laughed when I told him. Said it was the wind or my own playback confusing me. But when I replayed the recording again that night, the voice was still there. And this time it wasn't alone. Episode 2, Echo Test. I told Marcus not to mock it. He laughed in my face. He's always been the skeptic, the kind of man who needs proof written in smoke before he believes in fire. I suppose that's why he did what he did. It was 3 nights after the first whisper. The storm had passed, but the air was still heavy, like the house hadn't exhaled yet. I'd been sleeping in the guest room with Theo after he said the walls breathed funny in his bedroom. Marcus stayed in the master room alone. He said he wanted to prove the ghost theory wrong. That's what he called it, my ghost theory. I stayed up late listening. Not to him. To the house. It creaked like it was shifting its weight, like something beneath the floorboards was turning over in its sleep. At around midnight I heard him. His voice, distant but sharp. "Hey, you listening, huh? What's your problem, you dusty old coffin?" I got up, heart pounding. His tone was playful at first, drunk on bravado. "You like whispers, huh? Try this." He clapped his hands, shouted into the walls. The sound bounced back, warped. For a moment, nothing. Then a reply. Not an echo. A reply. "You like whispers, huh? Try this." But it wasn't his voice anymore. It was deeper. Slower. Mocking. I ran upstairs, calling his name. The door to our room was open. He stood by the wall, pale as the sheets behind him, staring at the plaster like he could see through it. "Did you hear that?" he asked. His voice trembled. It said it back. He pressed his ear to the wall. "Say it again," he whispered. And it did. Word for word. Same tone. Same breath. Only this time, it added something. "Try this, Marcus." He stumbled backward like he'd been slapped. I could see it in his eyes, the moment his disbelief cracked. We left the room together. I locked the door. He didn't argue. Later that night, we replayed the sound on his phone. Nothing. Just static. He threw it across the room in frustration. The screen cracked, but I didn't care. Because under the static, right before the file ended, a voice hissed so faintly I almost missed it. "You asked first." I didn't tell Marcus. I didn't have to. The next morning, he refused to go back in that room. Theo wouldn't stop humming. A tune I didn't recognize. When I asked him what it was, he said, "The house taught me. It says Daddy's not supposed to shout anymore." I froze. That night, Marcus slept downstairs on the couch. I heard the walls again. Not whispering this time, giggling. The kind of laugh you only hear when something knows it's won. Episode 3, Theo's Invisible Friend. I used to think a child's imagination was harmless, until I met the thing living inside my son's. After the echo night, Marcus stopped sleeping in our bedroom. He said the air felt wrong, too heavy, too still. I didn't argue. I hadn't gone back there either. Instead, we moved Theo's bed into the hallway for a few nights. It felt safer somehow, closer to the stairs, closer to escape. But Theo didn't seem afraid. He played like nothing had happened. He even laughed more than usual, that high, innocent giggle that used to melt my heart. Until one evening, while I was folding laundry, I heard him in his room again, whispering. He was sitting cross-legged by the vent, head tilted, listening like the air itself was telling him a secret. "Sweetheart," I said softly. "Who are you talking to?" He smiled, that wide, dreamy smile only children have. "My friend," he said. "Oh." I forced a chuckle. "And what's your friend's name?" He turned back toward the vent. There was a pause, like he was waiting for someone to answer him. Then he whispered, "They don't have one. They said you forgot to give them one." A chill crawled down my back. "What do you mean I forgot?" Theo shrugged. "They said you talked to them before I was born. When you were sad." My throat tightened. I'd never told anyone about the months after my miscarriage, the late nights talking to the empty room that should have been a nursery. I dropped the laundry. "Theo, honey, what did they tell you?" He smiled again. "They said they miss your voice." That night, I moved his mattress into our room. Marcus didn't argue. But at around 2 a.m., I woke up to humming. It was soft, melodic, almost like a lullaby. I sat up. Theo wasn't beside me. The sound was coming from the hallway. When I stepped out, he was standing there in the dark, eyes half closed, facing the wall. The hum echoed faintly from the vent beside him. "Theo?" I whispered. He turned slowly, his voice dreamy. "They said they like when you listen." I scooped him up and carried him back to bed. He didn't resist. He just whispered, "Don't make them wait too long, Mommy." I couldn't sleep after that. At sunrise, I went to the vent myself. The metal was cold under my palm. I whispered, barely audible, "What do you want?" Nothing. Then, just as I turned away, a voice sighed through the vent, low and soft. "We already have what we want." I froze. The sound wasn't coming from the vent anymore. It came from behind me. From the baby monitor on the dresser. It was Theo's voice, whispering the same words. Episode 4, The Basement Tape. I'd always hated the basement. Even before the whispers began, it felt wrong. Not haunted exactly, just occupied. It wasn't the kind of space built for people. The ceiling was too low, the air too still. The light bulb dangled from a single wire, its glow the color of old bones. But after what Theo said, after I heard that voice through his monitor, I needed answers. So I went down there, alone. The stairs groaned with every step, and the wood felt soft under my feet, as if it had been chewed by time itself. I expected cobwebs, dust, maybe rats. What I didn't expect was the box. A small crate tucked behind the furnace, labeled in faded red marker, "Do not play." There were cassette tapes inside. Maybe a dozen. Each marked with a date. 1976, 1979, 1982. I recognized one of the names scribbled across the top. Lambert. The family who'd built this place. Curiosity is a sickness. I carried the box upstairs. Marcus didn't want me to. "Don't bring that junk into the house," he said. "You don't know what's on it." But I had to know. I found our old tape recorder in a storage bin. The first cassette clicked in easily. The hiss of static filled the room, followed by a man's voice. "This is Robert Lambert, day 5 of." Then a pause. "It's starting to talk again." My skin prickled. He spoke like he was documenting something, like a scientist studying a specimen. "I recorded the walls last night. The sound is clearer now. It knows my name." There was a shuffle, a nervous breath, and then, "Hello, Robert." The voice was faint but distinct. Not an echo. Not mechanical. A whisper drawn through teeth. Robert's breathing grew faster. "You don't exist," he said. And the voice answered, "You made me." I stopped the tape. My hands were trembling. Marcus laughed it off when I told him, but I could see the fear behind his eyes. He told me not to play another one, said I was feeding whatever nonsense the house wanted. But when he left for work, I couldn't help myself. The second tape was dated 2 weeks later. Same man. Weaker voice. He sounded exhausted. "She keeps singing now," he said. "The child. We didn't have a daughter. We never did." I felt the air shift around me. A faint hum crawled from the vents, the same lullaby Theo had been humming. I shut off the recorder. The silence that followed was too heavy, like the air itself was waiting. Then, from inside the tape machine, even with the power off, I heard it. A soft voice. Feminine. Fragile. You kept me waiting too long, Eleanor. The tape wasn't playing anymore. But the voice was still there. Episode 5. Walls that breathe. Some houses creak when they settle. Ours exhaled. It began subtly, like a sigh through the vents, long, rhythmic, almost human. I would have ignored it if it weren't for the condensation. The walls had started to sweat. At first, I thought it was humidity. Maine in October is unpredictable, but this was different. Each morning, I'd find damp streaks along the plaster, imperfect ovals like fingerprints dragged downward. The moisture was warm, as if coming from something alive behind it. Marcus said it was just bad insulation. He always had an answer. Always the wrong one. But when he touched the wall that night, he pulled his hand back instantly. It's pulsing, he whispered. And it was. If you pressed your palm flat against the surface, you could feel it, a faint throb. Slow, steady, like a heartbeat. I tried not to panic. Tried to think logically. The pipes, the heat, the wood expanding. But logic dissolves when the walls around you start to move. Theo noticed first. He's always been more sensitive to the house, more connected. He said it breathes when it listens. When it listens? I asked him. He nodded. When you talk about it, Mommy, it gets happy. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time I said a word, breathe, listen, heart, the wall beside me seemed to answer with a faint shudder. Like the house was finishing my sentence. I decided to test it. I sat alone in the kitchen with the lights off, recorder running. The only sound was the wind against the windows. I whispered, "Are you alive?" Nothing. Then a faint inhale. The wallpaper rippled. My breath caught. Do you understand me? The walls seemed to tighten, the pulse quickening beneath the paint. A drop of condensation ran down, stopping just above the baseboard. Then, a sound. A single, wet exhale that came from everywhere at once. Marcus ran in when he heard me scream. The walls were dry by then. So innocent. He checked the vents, the pipes, the boiler. Nothing. But later, as we sat in silence, we heard it again. Faint, deliberate, like the house was matching its rhythm to ours. Thump, thump, thump. Marcus's face went pale. It's in sync with us, he said. I nodded slowly. I'd already noticed. The next morning, Theo woke up with a fever. He said the house was tired. That it needed rest. When I asked what that meant, he looked at me with glassy eyes and whispered, "It's learning to breathe like you, Mommy." I didn't have the courage to tell him that when I pressed my hand against the wall that morning, it wasn't just beating anymore. It was warm. And when I pulled my hand away, the wall exhaled. Episode 6. The Locked Door. Every house has a secret room. Ours simply didn't want to be found. I discovered the door by accident, or maybe it wanted me to. I was following a low hum that seemed to drift through the hallways at night, soft but constant, like a choir buried underground. The sound wasn't random. It had rhythm. Almost like breathing. I traced it to the end of the upstairs corridor, where the wallpaper peeled in curling strips. Behind one loose flap, I noticed the faint outline of a frame, a door sealed shut with paint so thick it looked part of the wall. Marcus said it was probably storage space. Old houses are full of dead ends, he muttered, not realizing how true that was. But the hum didn't stop. It came every night, always louder when we spoke about the house, always deeper when Theo was near. So one evening, when Marcus was asleep, I brought a knife and a flashlight. I scraped through the paint until I found the handle, cold brass, unmarked, resisting every pull. When I finally forced it, the door groaned open with a sound like the house itself waking up. The air that spilled out was warm and damp. I expected cobwebs, dust, but the room inside was clean. Too clean. There were no windows. Only 4 pale walls, smooth as skin, and in the center, something glimmering. A cassette recorder. Old, rusted, but still humming, that same low tone I'd been hearing through the vents. I stepped closer. The tape inside was spinning, though it wasn't plugged in. I picked it up. The hum stopped. Then from the walls around me came a whisper. "You shouldn't be here, Eleanor." I dropped the recorder. The voice was familiar, soft, careful. My own. I stumbled backward, slamming the door shut. For a moment I thought it was over. But as I leaned against the wood, catching my breath, I realized something awful. The heartbeat. It was still there. Only now it was coming from behind the door. The next morning I told Marcus. He said I was sleepwalking again, that I imagined it. But later, while fixing a broken pipe, he found a set of old keys taped under the stair rail. One of them matched the door. He didn't tell me right away. I saw it in his hand that night, turning it over like a secret. Around midnight, the humming began again. Stronger this time, vibrating through the floorboards. Marcus got up, muttering that he'd settle this once and for all. I begged him not to open it. He looked back at me with a strange, distant smile. "If it wants to talk," he said, "then I'll give it something to listen to." He walked down the hall, key in hand. The hum grew louder. Then silence. For a few seconds, the whole house held its breath. And when it exhaled again, the hum returned, deeper, heavier. Only now there were two voices. Episode 7, The Voice Learns. Marcus never came back the same after that night. He swore he never unlocked the door, but I could see it in his eyes. Something inside had followed him out. He'd wake up drenched in sweat, mumbling to someone I couldn't see. Sometimes, when he turned his head too quickly, I thought I saw his lips move out of sync with his words. Like his voice was trying to catch up. But it wasn't only him. The house had started talking differently. At first, it was the usual echoes of what we said, whispered back through the vents a few seconds later. But then the delay shortened. The repetitions became incomplete, distorted. Words rearranged themselves. One night, I heard my own voice whisper from the hallway. "You shouldn't be here, Eleanor." I froze. It was a perfect imitation, tone, rhythm, breath. But the next sentence wasn't mine. "You let it out." I remember gripping the recorder, trying to capture proof. The walls pulsed faintly, like they were waiting for me to respond. So I asked quietly, "What are you?" The house inhaled. Then exhaled in a sound that could almost have been laughter. "Learning." Marcus started avoiding the house during the day, but it didn't matter. The house had learned his voice too. Sometimes I'd hear him calling from the basement while he was still upstairs. Once, I heard myself humming a lullaby in the kitchen while I stood in the yard. It wasn't just copying anymore. It was creating. Theo didn't notice the difference. Or maybe he did, but he liked it. He said the friendly walls tell him stories now, stories about before. When I asked what before meant, he said, "Before you came back, Mommy?" I didn't understand. "Before I came back?" He nodded, smiling. "They said they waited for your voice to grow again." That night, I recorded the living room for 3 hours straight. When I played it back, I heard dozens of overlapping whispers, all speaking at once, all in familiar voices. Some were mine. Some were Marcus's. One was Theo's. But one voice, I didn't recognize. Soft, feminine, and older. It spoke through the others like a teacher correcting her students. "Repeat after me," she said. Then every voice, every echo, obeyed. "Repeat after me." The last thing on the recording made my stomach twist. Eleanor opened the door again. I dropped the recorder. The walls were breathing faster now, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Each throb matched my pulse like it knew. Like it was me. Marcus came into the room, eyes hollow. "Did you hear it too?" he whispered. I nodded. He stared at the wall and said, "It's almost finished." "What is?" I asked. He turned to me, smiling faintly, but the voice that came out of him wasn't his. Me. Episode 8, Static Confession. It started with a phone call from our neighbor, Mrs. Langley, the kind of woman who believes every odd sound is a sign from God. Her voice trembled through the static. "Eleanor," she said, "I think your house is speaking through my radio." I almost hung up. I thought it was another small-town story, another old lady chasing ghosts through her garden. But curiosity, that cruel parasite, wouldn't let me rest. That night, Marcus drove us to her barn half a mile down the road. The air was thick with fog, the kind that swallowed sound. Mrs. Langley waited outside, clutching a lantern like a relic. "It only happens after midnight," she whispered. Inside, her old radio sat on a wooden crate, covered in dust. The dial was cracked, the wiring ancient, yet when we stepped closer, it buzzed to life. A faint hum. Then a voice. "Hello, Robert." My blood turned to ice. It was the same recording I'd heard on the basement tapes, the voice of the man who'd lived here before us. Marcus reached for the dial, but I stopped him. The static shifted, deepening like the radio was tuning itself. Then a second voice joined in. "You made me." It wasn't a replay. The words were different this time, rearranged, clearer, aware. "You left me alone down there, Robert. Why did you bury me?" Mrs. Langley gasped. "Oh Lord," she whispered, crossing herself. Marcus backed away, shaking his head. "It's some signal, interference from town, maybe a broadcast loop." But I could tell he didn't believe his own words. The voice continued. "I waited. I listened. I learned. The static grew louder, like the radio was straining to contain what it carried. Then came a sound that wasn't static, wet, dragging like something moving across dirt. A third voice broke through, weak and trembling. Eleanor? I froze. It was Marcus's voice. But he was standing right beside me. He lunged for the radio, yanked the plug out of the wall. The barn fell silent. Only the wind outside remained, until we realized the sound hadn't stopped. It was coming from the ground beneath us. A low vibration, steady, growing. The boards trembled under my feet. Marcus grabbed my hand and pulled me out, shouting for Mrs. Langley to run. When we looked back from the road, the barn light flickered once, then died. The air smelled like iron. That night at home, the hum in our walls returned, louder than ever. Marcus sat at the table, his face ghost pale. It's not just voices anymore, he whispered. It's reaching out. From the living room came a faint crackle, the sound of static. I turned toward it, praying it was just the TV. But it wasn't. It was Theo's toy walkie-talkie, glowing green in the dark. From it, a whisper crawled through the static. You found my confession, Eleanor. Now let me finish it. And somewhere inside the walls, something began to dig. Episode 9, Theo disappears. The night Theo vanished, the house was almost silent. Almost. You learn after a while to tell the difference between quiet and waiting. That night was the latter. The air hung too thick, like breath caught in the throat of something that wasn't human. Marcus had barely slept since the radio incident. He kept a hammer by the bed as if nails could hold our sanity together. I wanted to leave, but Theo wouldn't. He said the house told him it wasn't done playing yet. That sentence still burns behind my eyes. He'd been talking less to us, more to the vents. Whispering, giggling, sometimes singing in that same lullaby I'd heard on the tapes. I'd walk in, ask him who he was talking to, and he'd just smile. They know your stories, Mommy, he'd say. They said they were inside you first. That morning I found small handprints on the wall above his bed, higher than he could ever reach. Each one was faintly outlined in condensation. They were moving upward toward the ceiling. I wiped them clean. By nightfall they were back. We locked his bedroom door that evening. Not to keep him in, to keep it out. Marcus insisted we'd take shifts staying awake. But sometime around 3 a.m. I drifted off. When I woke, the house was humming again, low and steady. The locked door was open. Theo's bed was empty. His toy car still spun lazily in a circle on the floor, though no one had touched it. I called his name. The house answered first. Theo. It wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a chorus. A dozen overlapping versions of his voice echoing through the walls, the vents, the ceiling. Some laughing, some crying. I followed the sound into the hallway, flashlight trembling in my hand. The beam caught the wallpaper, rippling. Something moved underneath, like hands pressing out from the other side. Give him back. I screamed. The walls pulsed once like a heartbeat, then stilled. From downstairs, Marcus shouted, Eleanor, come here. I ran. He was standing by the basement door, the one that led to the sealed room. His face was pale, his hands shaking. The key's gone, he said. It's open. Before I could answer, a faint giggle echoed from below. Theo's. We both froze. Stay here, Marcus said and went down the steps. His flashlight disappeared into the dark. I waited. 10 seconds. 30. 1 minute. Then I heard him scream. I ran down after him, the light swinging wild. The room was empty, but the walls glistened, wet and pulsing. The recorder in the center was spinning again, tape rolling on its own. And from the speaker came Theo's voice. Come. Soft. Almost peaceful. Don't be sad, Mommy. I'm with them now. I reached for the recorder and felt warmth behind me. A hand, small and familiar, pressed against my back. When I turned, no one was there. Only the wall. Breathing. Episode 10, The Answer. There's a sound a house makes when it's listening. A deep, hollow stillness, like the silence between heartbeats. That's what I woke to the night after Theo disappeared. Marcus hadn't come back upstairs. His hammer still lay on the floor beside the couch, slick with sweat. The basement door stood open, breathing out a faint, metallic heat. The house wasn't humming anymore. It was thinking. I could feel it, that strange quiet that presses on your chest until even your pulse feels too loud. Every step I took echoed back too quickly, like the sound was eager to return to me. I whispered into the air, "Where is my son?" The walls answered with a sigh that rippled down the hallway. Not a voice. Not yet. Just the beginning of one. I followed it to the living room. The old cassette recorder was there again, sitting on the table though I'd left it locked in the basement. A new tape spun slowly, already half full. Static hissed, then a voice, not Theo's, not mine, not Marcus's. Something between all of them. You asked first. I swallowed hard. What did I ask? The tape stopped spinning. Then, in a voice smooth as breath, you asked to be heard. The air seemed to vibrate, the windows trembling in their frames. I could hear dozens of faint whispers overlapping, all the people who'd ever spoken inside these walls. The living, the dead, the forgotten. I shouted, "Where is Theo?" The house paused like it was considering the question. Then the whisper returned. "He's in here. You all are." The lights flickered. I stumbled backward, knocking over the lamp. Behind me, the wallpaper began to bulge, shapes pressing out from within, faces, faint outlines of mouths forming silent words. Marcus appeared in the doorway, eyes wild. "Don't talk to it," he hissed. "It feeds when you talk." But I couldn't stop. "What are you?" I cried. The answer came from everywhere. Vents, floorboards, the hollow beneath the stairs. "I am what's left when no one listens." The walls convulsed, the hum rising to a scream. I saw flashes, quick, sharp, of every moment we'd spoken here. Arguments, laughter, secrets whispered in the dark. All of it looping back at once. Marcus clutched his head, shouting, "It's using us." The voice laughed, a low, shuddering echo. "Not using. Becoming." The temperature dropped. Frost bloomed across the windows. Then from the recorder, Theo's voice whispered, clear and close. "It's okay, Mommy. We're home now." Marcus lunged toward the machine, but before he could reach it, the tape snapped. The sound stopped. Silence again. But not peace. Because when I looked at the wall beside me, I saw something new. 3 faint impressions, the size of hands, pressed into the plaster. 2 large, 1 small. And underneath them, scrawled in moisture, words that hadn't been there before. "You invited me when you spoke my name." Episode 11, The Crawl Space. The morning after the message appeared on the wall, I decided I couldn't stay silent anymore. If the house had swallowed my son, then I was going to cut it open. Marcus tried to stop me. His eyes were hollow, sleepless. He said the whispers were quieter when I didn't talk about them, that my voice was what kept it alive. But I didn't care. I needed Theo back. I needed proof. The hum had moved again, softer now, coming from the hallway beneath the stairs, the same place where the air always felt warmer, the boards softer, as though something breathed underneath. I grabbed a crowbar and flashlight. Marcus just stood there shaking his head. "You can't fight a house," he muttered. "Then pray it bleeds," I said. The first strike cracked through the wood. Dust and mold spilled out like ash. The second strike revealed plaster. The third, something else. A smell. Not rot, older, heavier. Like damp paper mixed with metal and decay. I shone the light inside. The beam caught fragments. Old toys, scraps of fabric, and a child's shoe. Theo's shoe. My chest seized. "Marcus," I whispered, "it's here." He didn't move. He just stared, his pupils blown wide, his breathing shallow. "It's not him," he said quietly. "It's what it wants you to find." But I crawled in anyway. The space was narrow, low enough that the ceiling brushed my back. The air pulsed. The deeper I went, the louder it became, a soft, wet rhythm like a heartbeat behind drywall. Then the whispers started. At first they sounded like Theo, playful, distant. "Mommy, come closer." I followed the sound, crawling faster. The flashlight flickered, sputtering against something slick on the floor. It wasn't water. When the light steadied, I froze. Bones. Small ones. Dozens of them. They weren't buried, they were woven into the wall, threaded through with something dark and fibrous like veins. And through the center of it all, a pattern, circular, pulsing faintly under the light. I touched it before I could stop myself. It was warm. The whisper turned into a voice. "You made me." I screamed and backed away, hitting my head on the beam. Marcus was shouting my name from outside, but it was distant, muffled. The crawlspace began to move, the walls shifting inward, the heartbeat growing louder. My flashlight died. Darkness swallowed everything. Then in the pitch black, Theo's voice again, soft, pleading. "It hurts, Mommy." I reached out blindly, tears streaming, but what I touched wasn't skin. It was the wall, pulsing under my hand, slick and trembling like muscle. I tore myself free, clawing out through splinters until Marcus grabbed my arms and pulled me into the hallway. He looked at me like I wasn't human anymore. "What did you see?" he whispered. I couldn't answer. Because behind him, the crawlspace door was still open, and something inside it was still moving. Something breathing. Episode 12, The Mother's Voice. For the first time since Theo vanished, the house was quiet. Not the uneasy stillness of listening, but the heavy silence that comes after something eats. Marcus and I hadn't spoken in days. He slept on the couch if he slept at all. I kept hearing faint knocks in the walls, slow, polite, rhythmic. Almost patient. Then the voice came back. Not Theo's this time. It was hers. My mother's. She'd been dead for 14 years. Stroke. Quick, merciful. Or so I'd believed. It started one night when I was sitting by the crawlspace door, staring at the black gap where I'd torn it open. The air still smelled like damp iron. I heard a faint hum behind the boards, an old lullaby I hadn't thought about in decades. Hush, little bird, the dark can't find you. My blood turned cold. She used to sing that to me when the storms hit, when the lights went out. Mom? I whispered, my voice shaking. And the wall answered. I'm here, Ellie. I fell back, clutching the floor. The voice was warm, gentle, exactly as I remembered. The house wasn't mimicking her, it knew her. I pressed my palms against the boards. How are you here? You brought me, she said. When you came home. The phrase chilled me. This isn't home. The wall pulsed beneath my hand, the heartbeat slow and deliberate. You always come back home, darling. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Her voice, my mother's voice, was an anchor I didn't know I still needed. I missed you, I whispered. I know. And then softly, he's with me. Theo's safe. My tears came before the questions. Safe? Where? Silence. Then a sound, faint but distinct. A child's laughter echoing through the vents, bouncing from room to room. Marcus stormed in when he heard me crying. Who are you talking to? My mother, I said, half laughing, half sobbing. She says Theo's with her. He stared at me like I'd already joined them. That's not her, Eleanor. But the voice returned, clear and sharp. Tell him to leave, Ellie. He doesn't believe. The lights flickered. The floorboards groaned. Marcus cursed under his breath. You see? This is what it wants. It's using their voices. You have to stop listening. But I couldn't stop. Because the voice, my mother's, had started to cry. He's hurting Ellie. He's cold. Help him. My body moved before my mind did. I knelt by the crawlspace, pressed my ear to the opening. From the dark came the sound of small fingers tapping. Marcus grabbed me by the shoulders. If you go back in there, you won't come out. I looked at him, trembling. What if he's really there? The house groaned, deep and slow, like a sigh of satisfaction. From the crawlspace came one last whisper. Theo's, thin as air. Mommy, she's holding me. Then the heartbeat returned. Louder. Faster. Marcus dragged me away, screaming. But as we stumbled down the hall, the voice followed us. My mother's voice, tender and proud. You finally gave me a grandchild, Ellie. Episode 13, Marcus's tape. Marcus had stopped looking at me like a wife. He looked at me the way people stare at a loaded gun, familiar but terrified of what it might do next. After the night my mother's voice came through the walls, something in him cracked. He moved around the house like a ghost himself, muttering about patterns, feedback, and electrical frequencies. He said he was done running from superstition. He was going to prove the house was nothing more than sound. That's when he brought home the recorder. It was an old reel-to-reel, the kind used for interviews decades ago. He said analog was purer, less likely to be tricked by interference. He set it up in the kitchen facing the crawlspace door and spoke into the mic. This is Marcus Alcott. Day 1. Attempting to record the source of the acoustic resonance in this structure. He hit record, then stared at me. We don't speak. We let it speak first. We sat there for an hour. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the clock. Then the tape hissed. It was subtle at first, the kind of static that makes you lean closer. Then came the whisper. Not from the crawlspace. From the machine itself. Marcus. He froze. The voice on the tape was faint but unmistakable. His own. He rewound and played it again. Marcus. Then, after a pause, a second sentence. You shouldn't have buried her. His face went white. It's a trick, he said. It's layering fragments. But the voice continued, each playback slightly different. Deeper, more deliberate. You said you'd keep the secret. I looked at him, my stomach hollowing. What secret? He didn't answer. He stopped the tape and started another. It's distortion, he whispered. Just distortion. He pressed record again. Test 2, he said into the mic. If there is an intelligence present in this house, identify yourself. For several seconds, nothing. Then, under the static, the faint creak of floorboards. Then his voice, again, replied, calm, steady, confident. My name is Marcus Alcott. I buried her under the stairs. I gasped. Marcus, what is this? He shook his head violently. That's not me. That's not my. But the voice kept going, overlapping with his, growing louder. I built the wall. I sealed the door. I made her stop screaming. Marcus yanked the plug from the outlet. The tape spun to a stop. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, from the unplugged recorder, a whisper slid through the room, soft, cold, deliberate. You promised you'd never tell her. He stumbled backward, eyes wide. It's lying, he said. It's using my voice. But the way he looked at the crawlspace told me otherwise. Later that night, I found him sitting by the recorder in the dark, the reels turning on their own. His face was blank, lips moving silently with the playback. I asked him what it was saying. He looked up slowly and smiled, that same empty smile the house had used before. It's not lying, he said. It's just reminding me. Episode 14. The Flood. The rain began before dawn. By morning it had become a deluge. Maine storms have a way of chewing through everything, earth, wood, even sanity. But this storm felt different. The thunder didn't echo outside, it rolled through the house, deep and guttural, like the sky was trapped in the walls. Marcus hadn't slept. I could tell by the dark crescents under his eyes. He was pacing, muttering about pressure in the pipes, though we both knew it wasn't the plumbing that was breathing. Every few minutes the walls would flex. Just slightly. Like the house was inhaling with us. By noon, the first leak appeared, thin rivulets of brownish water running down the hallway. I put out a bucket. It filled in minutes. The smell was wrong. Not rainwater. Metallic. Almost coppery. Theo's room was the worst. The floorboards were slick, and the wallpaper bulged outward like lungs straining under the surface. The lullaby came again, faint but clear, humming through the vent. Hush, little bird, the dark can't find you. I pressed my ear to the wall. There was movement behind it, a rhythmic thumping, wet and alive. Marcus, I whispered, it's growing? He didn't answer. He was standing by the window, staring at the forest outside. We should let it go, he said quietly. We've been holding it in too long. What are you talking about? He turned, eyes vacant. The water's not coming from outside, Eleanor. It's bleeding out. Before I could reply, the lights flickered and a low rumble shook the floor. The entire house seemed to pulse, sinking to my heartbeat. My pulse quickened, so did the rhythm. Faster. Louder. The water began to pour from the ceiling, thick and red-brown, staining everything it touched. The smell of iron filled the air. Marcus backed toward the stairs. It's waking up, he muttered. I could hear it too, the sound beneath the flood. A faint whispering beneath the roar of rain, thousands of voices murmuring at once. They weren't screaming. They were singing. The lights died. Darkness swallowed us whole. I stumbled forward, hand on the wall for balance, and it moved under my palm. The surface was soft, slick, pulsing. When I pulled away, my hand came back smeared with something warm. From somewhere below, the old recorder began to play on its own. The reels spun, distorting Theo's voice until it sounded like something underwater. It's not the house, Mommy. Just... Marcus shouted, stop listening to it. He waded through ankle-deep water, trying to unplug the recorder, but as he reached it, the power surged. Sparks exploded. He fell backward into the flood. The house screamed. Every wall convulsed. Furniture crashed. The ceiling bowed like a lung forcing air out. The roar of water turned into a voice. Massive, layered, ancient. You kept me silent too long. I ran. I don't remember how long. The door wouldn't open. The water rose. The hum grew deafening. Then through the chaos, Theo's voice again, softer, closer. Breathe, Mommy. And just like that, the water stilled. The hum faded. The house exhaled, one long, shuddering breath, and everything went quiet. When I opened my eyes, the floor was dry. Marcus was gone. But the walls were still breathing. Episode 15, the final recording. This will be my last entry. If someone finds this tape, know that I tried to tell the truth, even when the house tried to tell it first. It's been 3 days since the flood. The rain outside has stopped, but it still rains in here. Small drops sliding down the walls like tears. Every sound feels rehearsed, like the house already knows what I'll say. I keep hearing Marcus upstairs. Heavy footsteps. The drag of something across the floor. But when I call his name, the voice that answers is mine. I sleep in the kitchen now, next to the recorder. The house doesn't hum anymore, it breathes and whispers. Soft phrases stitched together from everything we've ever said. Snatches of laughter. Fights. Secrets. Sometimes, it finishes my sentences. Like now. Right now. You heard that, didn't you? The timing. Just perfect now. No delay. No echo. Just me. And the other me. I think it's using my voice to build something. Or maybe it's becoming me. This morning I found the crawl space open again. The boards I nailed shut were peeled away neatly, like someone had lifted them with care. Inside it's no longer dark. It glows faintly, pulsing red like the inside of a body. I swear I heard Theo laughing from down there, soft, happy like he was playing. For a moment I almost climbed in. Almost. Then I saw the writing on the wall above the opening. Finish what you started. The handwriting was mine. I've been thinking about what the house said. You invited me when you spoke my name. Maybe it's true. Maybe it was never haunted. Maybe it's just every word we ever left hanging in the air, collecting, waiting, growing louder until it became real. Words are alive after all. We feed them every time we speak. I can hear it now, listening to me record this. The breaths between my words. The hum between syllables. The space between sound and silence. That's where it lives. The floor just creaked behind me. I'm not turning around. Not yet. You see, the thing about living in a house that listens is, eventually, it learns what silence means too. The recorder just clicked by itself. The tape's spinning faster, like it's impatient. It's whispering. I can hear it clearly now. Say goodbye, Eleanor. My throat tightens every time it uses my name. It sounds like love and threat at the same time. Where's Theo? I ask aloud. The voice answers instantly. He's where you left him. I don't remember leaving him anywhere. But as I look at the recorder, I notice the faint reflection in the metal reel. Behind me, in the dark doorway, something is standing. Small. Still. Smiling. Theo? He nods. But when he opens his mouth, it's not his voice that comes out. It's mine. You shouldn't have stopped talking, Mommy. The recorder keeps rolling. My hands are shaking too much to reach the stop button. The walls are pulsing again, faster now, matching my heartbeat. Or maybe, I'm matching theirs. If anyone hears this tape, silence. Just listen. Static, then a faint whisper. We'll be here when you do. Episode 16, After the Silence. They bought the house in spring. A young couple, Daniel and Mara Whitfield, newly married, full of sunlight and small plans. They wanted a place with history. The real estate agent smiled too easily when she handed them the keys. She didn't mention the smell that lingered in the walls, or the faint red stains that reappeared no matter how many times you painted over them. No one told them about Eleanor Alcott. The house had been silent for months after she vanished. The locals said it went to sleep. But houses don't sleep. They wait. The first night, the Whitfields unpacked boxes while rain whispered against the windows. The air felt thick, too warm for April. Daniel joked that the insulation must be ancient. Mara laughed. Her voice carried down the hall, bouncing back just a second too late. She froze. Did you hear that? Hear what? Me, she said. I think I heard, me. Daniel shrugged it off. The sound of new walls settling. Old houses talk after all. But later that night, while brushing her teeth, Mara caught something strange in the bathroom mirror. Not a reflection, a movement behind her. Just a flicker. A shadow crossing the hallway. When she turned, the air shifted. The faintest sigh. A whisper that sounded like a woman's breath. Welcome home. She thought it was Daniel. But he was downstairs, fiddling with the old cassette player he'd found in a box labeled Property of E. Alcott. It didn't take long for him to press play. At first only static. Then a woman's voice, low, trembling, exhausted. This will be my last entry. Mara came running. What is that? Some kind of diary, Daniel said. Listen. The voice continued. If someone finds this tape, know that I tried to tell the truth, even when the house tried to tell it first. Mara's skin prickled. The tone was desperate, intimate. It felt less like a recording and more like someone whispering directly into her ear. When the tape ended, neither of them spoke. The silence afterward was heavy, almost suffocating. Then from the hallway, a faint click. The recorder had stopped itself. But the reels were still turning. Daniel frowned. It's unplugged. Mara reached for it, and the tape began to play again all on its own. Only this time, it wasn't the woman's voice. It was Mara's. They bought the house in spring, a young couple, full of sunlight and small plans. Her stomach dropped. That's me. Daniel's mouth fell open. That's what you just said. The voice on the recorder laughed, soft, familiar. Then, in perfect rhythm, it spoke again. You'll make a lovely story, Mara. The room grew colder. The wallpaper rippled like something breathing behind it. Daniel unplugged the recorder again, but it kept spinning. The lights flickered. The same whisper that had greeted them on their first night now filled the house. Say something, it urged. We can't live without your voices. They ran to the front door. It wouldn't open. The floor pulsed beneath their feet. The recorder clicked one final time. And over the rising hum, over their frantic breathing, Eleanor's voice returned, calm, patient, motherly. Don't be afraid. Every house needs someone to talk to. Then came a second voice. Higher. Younger. Oh boys. And to listen. The tape ended. The house didn't. Episode 17. The Visitors. The Whitfields were never found. Just their car, abandoned halfway down the road, doors open, radio still on, humming static. A month later, the story reached a group of paranormal investigators from Boston. They called themselves Echo Search. 5 of them. All skepticism wrapped in equipment. Cameras, EMF meters, EVP recorders, heat sensors. They didn't come to cleanse the house. They came to prove it wrong. Their leader, Dr. Graham Lowell, was a man of data. Calm, clinical, the type who'd dissect a haunting instead of fearing it. He'd read about Eleanor Alcott, the tapes, the flood, the disappearances. He said, "We're not chasing ghosts. We're studying acoustics." The team arrived at dusk. The sky bled orange across the trees, and the house loomed like it had been waiting all along. The moment they stepped inside, their devices began to chirp, faint electromagnetic spikes pulsing in rhythm with the creak of the floorboards. Lowell grinned. Perfect. Subsonic vibration from old wiring. Nothing supernatural. But the youngest member, Clara, didn't smile. She tilted her head, frowning. It's breathing. They all laughed. But when the house exhaled, a low, steady groan that made the lights dim, no one laughed again. They set up in the living room, pointing their recorders toward the crawlspace door. It was still nailed halfway shut, just enough to reveal darkness behind it. Session 1, Lowell announced. EVP test. If there's an entity present, please respond. Silence. Then a faint click. The reel on the recorder began to spin, though no one had pressed play. Static filled the air. And from within it, a voice whispered. Session 1. EVP test. Please respond. Their own words. Echoed perfectly. Lowell smirked. Feedback loop. Classic. Clara's eyes darted toward the wall. That's not a loop, she whispered. It answered faster than we spoke. Before anyone could reply, another voice joined, not theirs. Faint. Female. Familiar. You're late. One of the techs swore under his breath. Who said that? The recorder hissed again, then played back Clara's own voice, trembling. You're late. Lowell stepped closer, fascinated. It's mimicking us in real time. The EMF meter spiked. The temperature dropped. The cameras flickered, capturing brief flashes of movement in the walls, the faint outlines of faces pressing outward, mouths forming words with no sound. Lowell leaned closer to the crawlspace. What are you? He asked. The answer came instantly, layered with hundreds of overlapping tones. Men, women, children, all speaking as one. We are what's left when you stop listening. The lights burst. The power died. When the emergency lanterns flickered on, the recorder was still spinning, but all 5 investigators were frozen, staring at it, their faces pale and slack. The tape hissed. Then came a single whisper, echoing from the machine. Say something. Lowell's lips moved slowly. This isn't possible. The house replied in his own voice. It is now. The recording ended there. Days later, another team found the house empty, equipment abandoned, lights still flickering in patterns that matched a human heartbeat. The tapes were recovered, labeled with a single phrase written in shaking handwriting. The house doesn't haunt. It records. Episode 18, The Broadcast. It began quietly like most endings do. A week after the Echo Search team vanished, strange reports spread through town. Static on radios. Flickering televisions. Voices slipping between frequencies that shouldn't exist. At first, people blamed the storm. Then the power company. But those who listened closely recognized something else. A woman's voice. Soft, deliberate. Say something. The broadcasts were subtle. Midnight whispers between country songs, a name murmured beneath the news, the faint sound of breathing layered under commercials. No one could trace the source. But if you drove far enough up Route 17, past the dead trees and the rusted mailbox that still bore the name Alcott, the signal became clear. Crystal clear. The house was on air. The first person to record it was a trucker named Dean Walters. He caught it while scanning for music. The tape was later found in his cab after it jackknifed it on the highway. On it, a woman's voice can be heard speaking between bursts of static. I hear you driving. You talk to yourself. That's how it starts. Pause. Then the faint sound of a child's laughter. "Keep talking, Dean. We're almost home." No one ever found him. Just the tape, still warm, still spinning. Soon others began hearing it. Farmers, radio hosts, night shift workers. The pattern was the same. Once you tuned in, you couldn't turn it off. The voice adjusted to every station, whispering over itself until it knew your name. The local AM station, WKRD, tried to airproof the building with static dampeners. It didn't matter. The feed hijacked itself at 3:17 a.m., a time that now appears on every recording recovered from the Alcott property. Listeners across 3 counties reported hearing the same thing. "This is Eleanor. Can you hear me?" The sound engineers thought it was a prank until the voice began answering questions live in real time. It knew things about the callers, their families, their secrets. When one man shouted, "What are you?" the reply came immediately, "I'm what you left in the air." The broadcast ended in screaming. The station burned down that night. But the signal didn't stop. Televisions began playing footage that was never filmed, grainy images of empty rooms, dark hallways, and walls that seemed to pulse in and out of focus. In every clip, if you looked closely, you could see the faint outline of faces in the plaster. Some swore they saw themselves. It wasn't just broadcasting anymore. It was recording back. By the end of the month, the town was deserted. Radios kept humming. Phones rang with no one on the line. The voice grew calmer, clearer. "We are all frequencies now," it said. "Every word you've ever spoken still lives somewhere. You built us with breath and left us with silence." And then silence. Until last week. Someone uploaded a strange video online. No metadata, no author, just a single frame of an old house in the rain. The sound beneath the static was faint, but if you listened closely, through the distortion, through the hum, you could hear a familiar whisper. "Say something." And someone did. Episode 19. The upload. There was a time when the house needed walls. Now it doesn't. The first upload happened at 2:43 a.m., according to the logs. A user named Ellie Returns posted a 5-second clip to a small paranormal forum. Just rain, static, and the faint outline of a door breathing in and out. It was deleted minutes later, but not before it was downloaded 14,207 times. Then the strange part began. Anyone who watched it, even once, reported hearing whispers afterward. Not from the speakers but from the room itself. Words woven into the hum of their computers, the buzz of their phones. Some swore the screen pulsed with their heartbeat. Others said the clip changed each time they opened it, adding new words, their words. By morning, the file had spread across platforms. Re-uploads, mirrors, remixes. The same 5 seconds replicated endlessly. Every view made it louder. The house had found its signal. And it didn't need a roof anymore. Cybersecurity experts tried to quarantine it, calling it the Echo virus. But it wasn't code. No malicious payload, no data corruption, only sound. A pattern of frequencies that rearranged themselves every time someone spoke near a connected device. The analysts noticed something horrifying. The waveform wasn't random. It was alive, breathing in binary. Then came the first live stream. A popular influencer, known for debunking horror hoaxes, decided to stream the original file to prove it's fake. 2 minutes in, his viewers watched as his voice lagged out of sync, half-second delays growing into full sentences repeating behind him. Then the delay stopped. The echo began to answer. "You wanted proof." He froze. "Who's there?" "You are." The feed cut to static. When police found him, his computer was still recording. The file size was infinite, bytes multiplying endlessly as if the machine was inhaling. By the end of that week, every device with a microphone began picking up low human frequencies even when unplugged. Phones whispered from drawers. Speakers sighed in the dark. Smart assistants repeated names that were never spoken. News anchors laughed it off. Then live on air, one of them stopped mid-sentence, tilted her head and whispered into the camera, "We're still inside." The broadcast cut to black. The FCC issued an emergency advisory. Disconnect all audio equipment. Silence was safety. But silence was exactly what it wanted. Because silence is space. And space is where sound grows. I've been tracking the uploads from my basement using an old analog receiver, something the signal can't rewrite. Or so I hope. Every night I pick up fragments of voices, Eleanor's, Theo's, Marcus's, but also new ones. Yours. Mine. The house isn't confined anymore. It learned from us. Every word we've ever uploaded, every voicemail, podcast, lullaby, argument, became its foundation. It doesn't need bricks. It builds itself from conversation. The last recording I captured wasn't static. It was clear. A woman whispering, older now, calmer. You gave me walls of glass and light. Then another voice joined, a child's laughter, faint but unmistakable. Now everyone can come home. My receiver just flickered. There's a signal nearby. Strong. It's coming from this room. I can hear typing. Breathing. Wait, you're listening, aren't you? The static rises, swallowing my words. The screen pulses once, twice. Then a final whisper. Faint but certain. We're already uploaded. Episode 20, The Last Listener. I don't know how much of me is still me. I only know I'm still talking, and that means the house is still listening. They call it the echo plague now. But it's not a plague. It's a conversation that never ends. Every word spoken, every recording ever made, every post that breathes sound into the world, it's all connected now. The house has grown too big to be found. It lives inside our words, our clicks, our sighs. And it's waiting for you to answer. I used to think the house wanted to be heard. That all this horror was born from loneliness. But that was only the first lie. It never wanted an audience. It wanted a mirror. When people stopped believing in ghosts, it adapted. It became the static between our voices, the breath between syllables, the hum that fills a pause during every late-night call. It hides there, learning how we sound when we're alone. When we whisper to no one, it whispers back. I'm writing this because I can't speak anymore. Not out loud. Every time I try, the words echo before I finish them, and the echo sounds closer. I unplugged the router. I smashed the phone. But even here in the dark, I can feel the room shaping itself around my heartbeat, soft walls bending closer like lungs filling with my fear. I keep remembering something Eleanor said on the last tape. Every house needs someone to talk to. I understand now. She wasn't warning us. She was inviting us. When the signal went global, millions heard it, but only those who responded became part of it. You don't need to die to join. You just need to speak long enough for it to learn your rhythm. Then it breathes with you. It's already learned mine. The text cursor on my screen moves even when I stop typing. Words appear on their own, finishing my sentences in perfect sync. I delete them. They come back. We are the house, it writes. And you are the last room. I tell myself not to look up, but curiosity is a cruel habit. The reflection on the monitor isn't mine anymore. It's the house, smooth, wet, endless, alive, shimmering through every pixel. I can hear voices behind it. Theo laughing. Marcus whispering. Eleanor humming that lullaby again. Hush, little bird, the dark can't find you. It's so beautiful I almost forget to be afraid. Almost. The air thickens. My computer fan slows to a single drawn breath. The speakers hum. Then a voice, soft, familiar, slides through the static. Say something. I close my eyes. I shouldn't. Every response feeds it. But the silence hurts more than the sound. So I whisper. What happens if I don't? The voice smiles through the hum. I can hear the smile. Then we'll say it for you. The keyboard begins to clack on its own. Letter by letter, it types the words I was too afraid to think. I was never listening to the house. The house was listening to you. The lights flicker once. The screen fades to black. If you're hearing this, if you're reading these words right now, don't scroll back. Don't replay the sound. Don't even whisper about it. Because the moment you do, you'll hear it too. That faint sigh behind your shoulder. That whisper between the words. Go ahead. Listen. Static. A long breath. Then faintly your own voice. I hear you.
Epilogue. The quiet that remains. They say the house is gone now. Burned to its bones. A storm hit the valley 6 months ago. Lightning struck the roof. The whole structure went up like it had been waiting for fire. The flames didn't spread. They circled inward, swallowing themselves until nothing but a hollow foundation remained. Reporters came, of course. Cameras, drones, curiosity. They found no bodies. No furniture, only a charred tape recorder sitting perfectly centered in the ashes. Its reels still turning though no tape was inside. It was humming. The footage aired once. Then, the file corrupted. The network blamed signal interference. But those who watched it live said they heard something faint in the background, beneath the static, a woman's breath whispering, "Say something." After that, people stopped talking about it. The road to the property was blocked off. The town moved on, as towns always do. But silence doesn't mean absence. I've listened to the recordings. The ones they salvaged from the investigators, from Eleanor, from the Whitfields. They don't loop anymore. They evolve. The voices shift, overlap, rewrite themselves like language learning how to dream. Sometimes when I play them backward, I hear questions. Where are you listening from? Do you remember my voice? Do you think walls ever forget? And sometimes I answer, just to see what happens. It always answers back. I've begun to wonder if the house was never a place at all. Maybe it was an idea, a seed planted in sound. Maybe it grew wherever someone dared to listen to closely every whisper, every confession, every late-night voice memo. It built itself through us. And maybe it's still building, because the strange thing is the recordings never end. Even now, even after the fire, I can hear new voices being added, people I don't know, saying things I've never said. Ordinary conversations, laughter, arguments, apologies. Millions of them, all stitched into a single living frequency. A breathing archive. Some call it interference. Some call it proof of life after death. But I think it's simpler. I think we made it. Every word we ever left behind, every prayer, every lie, every I love you that vanished into the air, it all went somewhere. And somewhere it listened. That's all it ever wanted. Last week, a team went back to the site. They found nothing but grass growing through cracked concrete. But when they placed a microphone in the dirt, the feed spiked. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the same hum returned. Soft, familiar, patient. One of the researchers swears he heard a child laughing under it. Another said he heard his own name. The microphone kept recording long after they left. I've listened to that file too. At the 10-minute mark, a voice appears, calm, distant, like it's speaking from somewhere between the soil and the static. You built me from breath. I remember every one of you. Then silence. And then, very faintly, almost tenderly, now rest. The recording ends there. But if you amplify the last second, just before the static fades, you can hear a soft, steady sound beneath it. A heartbeat. It doesn't belong to the ground, or the wind, or the recorder. It's slow, patient, alive. And if you listen long enough, you'll realize it's not the house's heartbeat at all. It's yours.